Sweat slid down Marcus's palms as the heavy mace dropped into them, the metal cold and rough. His arms shook for a heartbeat, but he locked his elbows and planted his feet into the hard stone floor. All around, the alien crowd roared, expecting to see him collapse in the next second. The weapon was massive, nearly as long as his body, its head carved with sharp spikes that could break bones with one swing. He could feel the weight pulling his shoulders down, but he refused to let it fall. Kareth's eyes narrowed. She stood tall before him, her blue skin glistening under the sunlight, muscles carved like steel cords. In her culture, giving a warrior's mace to another was not an act of kindness. It was a challenge. Drop it, and you were nothing. Hold it, and you stepped into their sacred law. She had expected the human to crumble instantly. Instead, he stood there, breathing hard but still holding her weapon like it belonged in his hands. Gasps spread through the arena stands. Elders leaned forward, whispering in disbelief. The alien children pressed closer to the railing, wide-eyed at the strange off-worlder who dared to grip the champion's mace. Kareth took a slow step forward, towering over him, her shadow swallowing his frame. "You don't know what you've done," she said, voice low, almost a growl. "I know I'm not letting go." Marcus replied, his jaw clenched, his knuckles white around the handle. A ripple moved through the crowd. One of the elders, dressed in ceremonial armor, stepped into the arena. His voice boomed so loud it shook the air. "By the law of the mace, the one who holds the weapon without yielding must face the champion in battle. Tomorrow, at first sun, this duel will be fought." The noise exploded around them. Cheers, laughter, and shouts of doubt. Kareth's lips curved into something between a smile and a snarl. "Then prepare yourself, human. Tomorrow, I will take back what is mine." Marcus let the words sink in, but his grip didn't loosen. The mace felt like a mountain in his hands, yet he lifted it just enough to rest it against his shoulder. The crowd reacted again, this time with an edge of fear. Nobody, not even her strongest rivals, had ever dared to carry her mace like that. She stepped closer until her face was inches from his. Her eyes burned with a strange light, half challenge, half curiosity. "I hope your bones are strong. I will enjoy hearing them break." His voice was quiet but firm. "You'll have to catch me first." Her laugh was short and sharp, echoing in the arena. She turned her back and walked away, but her shoulders were tense. The tradition was clear. He had forced her hand. And now, whether she liked it or not, they were bound by the challenge. The arena guards moved to escort Marcus out, but he waved them off and walked under his own power. His legs trembled from the weight, but he kept the mace until he was outside. Only then did he set it down, his arms screaming in pain. From the stands, Kareth watched him go, her expression unreadable. She had given him the mace to humiliate him. Now, something deep in her chest twisted at the memory of his eyes. Steady, unflinching. Word spread fast through the alien city. By nightfall, markets buzzed with gossip. Some said the human was mad. Others claimed he must have hidden strength. A few whispered that Kareth might finally meet her match. Marcus found no peace in the small guest quarters they had given him. Every muscle in his body throbbed. He had no real weapon of his own, no armor fit for their kind of combat, and no idea how to fight someone like her. But he had seen her face up close, seen the split-second surprise when he hadn't dropped the mace. That moment burned in his mind like a spark waiting to become fire. In the high towers, Kareth stood alone in her training hall. She swung her mace in slow arcs, feeling its weight, its balance. But her mind wasn't on her strikes. It was on the human. His stance had been awkward, his body too small for the weapon, but the way he had planted himself, it was stubbornness she had never seen before. Her people valued brute strength above all. And yet, a part of her wondered if there was another kind of strength, one that came from refusing to yield no matter the odds. The night grew quiet, but the city's heartbeat was still loud with anticipation. At dawn, the arena would be full again. The alien champion and the strange human would meet, and the law of the mace would decide both their fates. Marcus lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, fists clenched. He knew he might not survive tomorrow, but he also knew one thing. He hadn't come this far just to let go. The arena gates closed behind Marcus, the sound of heavy locks echoing in the narrow corridor. 2 alien guards, both towering over him, walked ahead without speaking. Their armor clinked with every step, and their glowing eyes kept flicking back to watch him. He could tell they didn't respect him. To them, he was just a weak outsider who had stumbled into their sacred tradition by accident. They led him to a long, dim hall. At the end, an elder stood waiting, his robe heavy with gold threads, a metal circlet resting on his brow. The elder's gaze swept over Marcus slowly, as if measuring the weight of his soul. "You touched the champion's mace and did not fall," the elder said, his voice deep and calm. "Now the law binds you to face her in combat. Do you understand what this means?" Marcus nodded. "I understand enough. If I lose, I die." The elder's eyes narrowed. "And if you win, you claim her." The words hit Marcus like a punch. He had heard the whispers in the crowd, but now the truth was laid bare. This wasn't just a fight. It was a battle for Kareth's honor, and by their laws, victory meant ownership. He wondered if she knew how strange that sounded to a human. The elder stepped closer. "No outsider has ever won. Your body is too light, your muscles too small, but you grip the mace. That disturbs the balance." Marcus said nothing. He knew talking wouldn't help. The only thing that mattered was tomorrow's fight. A heavy door opened and the guards took him to a small training ground lit by pale firestones. The floor was sand, the walls covered with weapon racks. An old alien stood in the corner, his body lean but still powerful, his skin faded to a pale gray. "This is Darak," one guard said. "He will prepare you or bury you." Darak studied Marcus for a long moment before speaking. "You are either brave or foolish, perhaps both. Show me how you fight." Marcus picked up a short staff from the rack, testing its weight. He lunged forward, swinging the staff low, but Darak blocked it easily with one hand and knocked Marcus to the sand. Slow, predictable. "You will be dead before the second strike," Darak said. "Kareth is not just strong, she is fast. She will crush you if you meet her head on." "Then I'll have to fight differently," Marcus said, standing and brushing sand from his arms. For hours, Darak pushed him harder than anyone had before. They practiced dodging heavy blows, weaving between strikes, and using momentum instead of strength. Marcus learned to watch his opponent's stance, to predict the swing before it came. Every muscle screamed in protest, but he kept going. At one point, Darak smirked. "You are quick for your size. That is your weapon. Do not forget it." Far above, on a balcony overlooking the training ground, Kareth stood in silence. She had come to see for herself whether the human was even worth killing. At first, she expected to find him collapsed, but instead she watched him dodge, roll, and strike with a sharpness she had not expected. Her chest tightened when she saw the stubborn set of his jaw, the same look he had when he held her mace. She told herself it was nothing, just curiosity. Yet she didn't leave. When Marcus finally dropped to his knees from exhaustion, Darak handed him a small cup filled with a bitter-smelling drink. "This will keep your muscles from breaking before tomorrow," the old alien said. Marcus drank, grimacing at the taste. "Do you think I can beat her?" Darak's eyes flicked toward the balcony where Kareth still stood. "I think you can survive, and sometimes surviving is victory." Kareth left without a word, but her mind was restless. She had never felt this strange twist inside her, half wanting to crush him in the arena, half wanting to see what would happen if he lasted longer than anyone else ever had. Night fell over the alien city, but no one slept easily. The market still buzzed with wagers, the taverns echoed with arguments, and the palace guards doubled their watch on the arena. In his quarters, Marcus sat alone, staring at the small table before him. On it lay a wooden carving. Someone had slipped it under his door. It was shaped like the mace, but instead of spikes, it bore strange symbols he couldn't read. He turned it over in his hands, feeling the smooth surface. Was it a warning? A blessing? Somewhere across the city, Kareth stood on her balcony, gripping her real mace. She swung it once, hard enough to crack the air, but her mind kept returning to the human's eyes. Tomorrow, she told herself, those eyes would be closed forever. But deep down, she wasn't certain. Cold morning air filled Marcus's lungs as he stepped into the training ground before the sun had fully risen. The pale light made the sand glow, and his breath came out in white clouds. Darak was already there, leaning on a long spear, eyes sharp despite his age. "You came early," Darak said without looking at him. "I couldn't sleep," Marcus replied, stretching his sore arms. "Good. Fear sharpens the mind, but overconfidence dulls the blade. You must find the balance." Darak said, tossing him a short blade. "Today we focus on speed and angles. Kareth will try to crush you with power. You must turn her strength against her. Marcus caught the blade, its weight far lighter than Kareth's mace. He slashed forward, then stepped aside to dodge an imaginary counter. Darroch corrected his footwork, forcing him to move faster, tighter. Again and again, Marcus trained, each strike followed by a quick retreat. After an hour, sweat dripped down his face and his shoulders burned. "She's taller, stronger, and faster," Marcus said between breaths. "How do I beat that?" Darroch's mouth curved into a thin smile. "By not fighting her fight. She will want you to meet her head-on, refuse her, make her chase you, make her waste her energy. The moment her swing slows, that is when you strike." Marcus nodded, gripping the blade tighter. He knew it would take more than skill, it would take nerve. Above, unseen by Marcus, Kareth once again stood in the shadows of the balcony. She told herself she had come to check the arena preparation, but her eyes kept finding him. She watched the way he moved, still clumsy in some ways, but quick, unpredictable. Not like her people, whose combat style was built on rigid patterns. For a brief moment, she imagined him in the arena, dodging her swings, eyes locked on hers. She felt something stir inside her chest, but quickly crushed the thought. He would be her opponent, nothing more. By mid-morning, Darroch ended the drills. "Rest now. Your body must be ready for tomorrow." Marcus walked back to his quarters, but as he reached the door, he found a folded piece of cloth hanging from the handle. Inside was a strip of alien armor, black leather reinforced with metal plates. It was too small for Kareth's size, too fine for a guard's gear. Someone had left it for him. He turned it over in his hands, wondering who had sent it. It fit his chest perfectly, as if made for him. That night, the city felt different. The streets were quieter, the taverns less noisy. The anticipation for the duel had turned from loud excitement to tense silence. Even the stars seemed to hang lower in the sky, as if watching. Marcus sat at the small table in his room, sharpening the short blade he would use. His mind replayed every move Darroch had taught him, every dodge, every counter. But underneath the focus was a weight, a thought he couldn't push away. If he lost, it wouldn't just be his life. By their law, his defeat would mark him as nothing. And if he won, he still didn't know if Kareth would accept that fate. In her private chambers, Kareth sat before a fire, polishing her mace. The golden spikes caught the light, casting long, sharp shadows across the walls. She imagined swinging it toward him, feeling the impact, hearing the crack of bone. But in that same image, she also saw him standing there, unbroken, eyes steady. She shook her head and stood, gripping the weapon tighter. This was foolish. A warrior's heart should not waver before battle. Yet somehow this human had entered her thoughts in ways no opponent ever had. Before she slept, she whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, I end this." But she didn't know if she was speaking to him or to herself. When the first rays of dawn touched the arena walls, Marcus was already awake. He strapped on the black leather armor, slid the blade into his belt, and took a deep breath. From somewhere far away, the sound of drums began to echo, a slow, steady beat that grew louder with each passing moment. In another part of the arena, Kareth stood in full battle gear, her armor a deep crimson, her mace gleaming in the sun. Her face was calm, but her heart beat faster than she wanted to admit. The gates would open soon. The duel would begin, and neither of them knew that the outcome would change more than just tradition. The gates creaked open, spilling bright sunlight onto the sand. Marcus stepped forward, his boots sinking slightly into the fine grains. The roar of the crowd struck him like a wave, thousands of alien voices blending into one unbroken sound. His fingers brushed the hilt of his short blade, but his eyes stayed fixed on the opposite gate. Across the arena, Kareth emerged, each step slow and deliberate. Her crimson armor caught the light, her mace resting against her shoulder like it weighed nothing. The crowd's roar shifted to a chant of her name, the sound pulsing through the ground. She didn't look at them, her gaze locked on Marcus and never wavered. They stopped 10 paces apart. The elder stepped between them, his voice rising above the noise. "The law of the mace binds you. The duel begins when the drums sound. It ends when one yields or one falls." The elder stepped back. The drums began, deep and steady. Marcus adjusted his stance, knees bent, weight balanced. Kareth lifted her mace with one hand and swung it in a lazy arc, testing the air. The first real move came fast. She lunged, mace whistling through the air. Marcus dodged to the side, the spike head smashing into the sand where he had stood a heartbeat ago. The ground shook from the impact. He countered with a quick slash at her side, but her armor turned the blade aside with a dull clang. She spun, swinging again, forcing him to roll backward to avoid losing his head. The crowd roared louder with each dodge. Kareth's strikes were powerful and precise, but Marcus never stayed still long enough to be hit. He ducked under one swing and slid between her legs, coming up behind her with a jab toward her back. She twisted, blocking with the mace's shaft, and shoved him away with surprising force. "You move well for someone so small," she said, her voice almost amused. "You swing heavy for someone who can't hit me," Marcus replied, his tone calm despite the pounding in his chest. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped in closer, her strikes becoming faster, heavier. Marcus felt the rush of wind from every blow. One wrong step, and it would be over. He feinted left, then darted right, slicing across her arm. The cut was shallow, but enough to draw a thin line of dark blood. The crowd's cheer turned into sharp gasps. Kareth looked at the wound, then at him, her expression unreadable. "You drew first blood," she said softly. "Now I take yours." Her next swing was so fast Marcus barely leapt aside in time. The mace's head smashed into the arena wall, sending shards of stone flying. Marcus used the moment to strike at her exposed side, but she twisted again, blocking the blow and shoving him back. They circled each other now, both breathing harder. Marcus could see the faintest slowing in her steps, just as Darak had predicted. Her swings were still deadly, but they carried a fraction more weight, took a fraction longer to recover. He stepped in close, forcing her to swing in tighter arcs. Each time she struck, he moved just far enough to avoid the blow. Sweat glistened on her temples now, her chest rising and falling faster. Marcus lunged suddenly, aiming for her leg. She blocked, but the movement left her mace high and her middle exposed. He slammed his shoulder into her, sending her stumbling back a step. The crowd erupted in disbelief. Her eyes locked on his, and for the first time, a spark of something other than battle burned there. Respect. "You are not what I thought you were, human," she said, her grip tightening on the mace. "And you're faster than I hoped," Marcus replied. She smiled faintly, a dangerous smile. "Then let's finish this." She charged again, but this time Marcus was ready. He stepped aside, caught the shaft of the mace under his arm, and wrenched it downward. The weapon hit the sand with a thud. Her strength pulled back against him, but he held on, their faces inches apart, eyes locked. The drums pounded faster, the crowd screaming. Neither let go. The sand between them shifted as they struggled, breath mixing in the hot air. Marcus could feel her power, but he also felt her slowing. In one sudden movement, he twisted the mace free from her hands. She stepped back, eyes wide. The crowd went silent for a heartbeat before exploding into chaos. Marcus stood there, holding her weapon just as he had on the first day, but this time in the middle of the fight. The weight of the mace pressed into Marcus's arms, but he kept it raised, the spikes catching the sunlight. The arena was loud with shouts, some calling for him to finish her, others screaming for her to take it back. Kareth stood a few steps away, her chest rising and falling, her hands empty. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in focus. She took one slow step forward. "You think holding my weapon means you've beaten me?" Marcus tightened his grip. "It means you're not holding it." Her lips curved into a small, dangerous smile. She rushed at him, faster than he expected. He swung the mace in a wide arc, forcing her to duck low, but she came in close, grabbing his arm. They struggled, the weapon trapped between them, their boots grinding into the sand. She twisted hard, trying to rip the mace free, but Marcus shifted his weight, pulling her off balance. She stumbled back and he swung again, this time low toward her legs. She jumped over the swing, landing with a thud that sent dust flying. The crowd roared at the clash of speed and strength. Kareth's eyes gleamed now, not with fury, but with something fiercer, determination. She lunged again, and Marcus met her halfway, mace against her forearm, his other hand gripping her shoulder. "You fight like someone who has nothing to lose," she said through clenched teeth. "Maybe I fight like someone who refuses to lose," he shot back, pushing her away. She paused, studying him. For the first time, her stance shifted, less aggressive, more cautious. Marcus felt the change and advanced, swinging the mace in tight, controlled arcs. Each blow drove her back a step, and the crowd began to chant his name now, mixed with hers. Sweat dripped down Marcus's back. His arms screamed from the strain, but he didn't let it show. He swung at her side, forcing her to block with her forearm, the impact jolting through both of them. She grunted but didn't break. Then, in a sudden move, she sidestepped his swing and slammed her palm into his chest. The hit sent him stumbling, air rushing out of his lungs. She grabbed for the mace, but he spun away, barely keeping hold. The noise in the arena grew wild, the tension thick in the air. They both knew the next mistake could end the fight. Marcus feinted left, then brought the mace down hard toward her right shoulder. She dodged, but the spiked head grazed her armor, tearing the strap across her chest. The leather loosened, and part of her armor slid down, leaving her side exposed. Her eyes locked on him again, and for a heartbeat, neither moved. Then she laughed, low and rough, as if she had just found the fight she'd been waiting for. She charged once more, but this time Marcus didn't retreat. He stepped into her path, bracing the mace across his body. She slammed into him, both of them tumbling into the sand, rolling in a storm of dust and shouts. When they stopped, Marcus was on top, the mace pressed lightly against her collarbone. He was breathing hard, sweat dripping onto her armor. Her chest rose and fell under him, her gaze locked to his. The elder's voice boomed above the chaos. By the law of the mace, the human stands victorious. Gasps and cheers erupted at once. Kareth didn't move, still staring at him. Slowly, she reached up and pushed the mace aside, then gripped his arm, pulling herself to her feet. "You have taken my weapon twice," she said, her voice quieter now. "By our tradition, that makes you more than just a victor." Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow. "And what does that mean?" "It means," she said, stepping closer so only he could hear, "you are bound to me, whether you like it or not." The crowd chanted again, the sound shaking the arena. Marcus stood there, unsure if he had just won a battle or stepped into something far bigger than he understood. The noise of the arena still echoed in Marcus's ears as the guards led him through the long stone corridors. The scent of dust and sweat clung to him, but the weight of the mace in his hands felt heavier than before, not from its mass, but from what it now meant. At the end of the hall, the elder waited again, his eyes sharp but unreadable. Kareth walked beside Marcus, her stride steady, her armor still cracked where his swing had struck. They stopped in front of the elder, who raised his staff. "By our law, the victor who claims the mace twice is bound to the champion," the elder said. "This bond cannot be broken without shame or death. From this day forward, Marcus of Earth stands as Kareth's chosen." A murmur rose from the guards and attendants. Some looked pleased, others disgusted. Kareth kept her face unreadable, but Marcus saw the brief flicker of something in her eyes. Acceptance, maybe, or calculation. The elder turned and walked away, this leaving them in silence. Kareth finally looked at him. "You are mine now, human. That is not an insult. It is a fact." Marcus gripped the mace tighter. "I didn't fight to belong to anyone." Her lips curved faintly. "And yet, here you are." She took the mace from his hands with ease and rested it on her shoulder. "Come. There is much you do not know about what comes next." They walked through winding corridors until they emerged into an open courtyard high above the city. The alien sun was lowering, painting the sky in deep gold and violet. Kareth stood at the railing, watching the markets below. "You think the fight was the test," she said without turning. "It wasn't. That was only the first step. Now, every eye will be on us. Some will want to see if I can tame you. Others will hope to see you fail so they can challenge me again." Marcus stepped beside her. "And if I don't play along, then they will come for you," she said plainly. "Scrot, and if they kill you, I lose my honor. That cannot happen." He studied her profile, the way the fading light caught on her sharp features. "You're saying we're stuck protecting each other." Her gaze shifted to him at last. "Exactly." That night, Marcus was given new quarters, larger, with a balcony that overlooked the city. The guards at his door were Kareth's own, their expressions unreadable but their presence constant. He couldn't tell if they were protecting him or making sure he didn't run. As darkness settled, Kareth entered without knocking. She had shed her armor, now wearing dark, fitted clothes that allowed free movement. She crossed the room, stopping just close enough for him to feel her presence. "I have decided," she said, "that we will train together starting tomorrow. If you are bound to me, you must fight like one of us." Marcus leaned against the wall. arms crossed. You think you can teach me in a day what your people take years to learn? She tilted her head slightly, studying him. No, but I can teach you enough to survive the first challenge when it comes, and it will come soon. Her certainty sent a small chill down his spine. He thought of the hostile stares in the arena, the whispers in the crowd. You're saying someone's going to test us. Not someone, she said, her voice low. Many. They stood there in the quiet, thus the sound of the city drifting in through the balcony doors. Finally, Kareth moved closer, so close her shadow merged with his. Do not mistake this bond for weakness. You may have beaten me in the arena, but in our home, survival is never certain. Marcus met her gaze steadily. Then I guess I'll have to prove I'm more than just lucky. Her faint smile returned. Good, because starting tomorrow, luck will not save you. She left as silently as she had entered, and left the door sliding shut behind her. Marcus stood there for a long moment, staring at the city lights beyond the balcony. He had come to this world as nothing more than an outsider, but now he was tied to the most dangerous warrior in the city. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the tension and uncertainty, he realized a strange truth. He wasn't sure he wanted to walk away. The first challenge came at dawn. Marcus was still lacing his boots when the sound of shouting rose from the courtyard. He stepped out to see Kareth already there, mace in hand, facing 3 armored aliens. Their crests marked them as warriors from another clan, their weapons sharp and ready. One of them stepped forward, his voice loud and mocking. The champion has fallen, and now she binds herself to an off-world weakling. I challenge your right to keep him. Kareth's reply was calm, but her grip on the mace tightened. Then you challenge me, and by our law, you will face us both. The warriors laughed until Marcus stepped down beside her, short blade in hand. The one who had spoken snarled. You'll die first, human. The fight began without ceremony. The first warrior lunged at Marcus, swinging a long, curved blade. He sidestepped just as Darak had taught him and cut low at the alien's leg. The warrior stumbled, roaring in pain. Beside him, Kareth moved like a storm. Her mace crushed through one opponent's guard, sending the alien sprawling into the wall. The third tried to flank Marcus, but Kareth's swing forced him back, her weapon whistling past his head. The wounded warrior came at Marcus again, this time faster, rage making him reckless. Marcus used it, letting the alien's strike pass close before slamming his shoulder into him and knocking him to the ground. He pressed the blade to the alien's throat. Yield, Marcus said. The warrior spat in the sand but dropped his weapon. Across the courtyard, Kareth had already finished her opponents, both lying unconscious. She turned to him, her chest rising with controlled breaths. You didn't die, she said, almost as if she were surprised. I told you, Marcus replied, sheathing his blade. I don't plan on it. The onlookers, mostly Kareth's own clan, murmured among themselves. Some nodded in approval, others simply watched in silence. The defeated warriors were dragged away, and the courtyard emptied. Kareth faced him again. You fought well. You learned faster than I expected. Or maybe you underestimated me, Marcus said, meeting her gaze. Her smile was faint but real. Perhaps. In the days that followed, the city slowly adjusted to the sight of them together. Some still whispered against him, but others began to treat him not as an outsider, but as part of Kareth's household. He trained daily, sometimes with her, sometimes under Darak's watchful eye. Each session left him bruised but stronger. One evening, as the sun set in streaks of red and gold, Marcus and Kareth stood on the high balcony overlooking the city. The air was cooler now, the noise from the markets fading into the distance. You've changed since the arena, Kareth said, her voice quieter than usual. Maybe I just started to see what's worth fighting for, Marcus replied. Her eyes lingered on his face, searching. You've taken my weapon, my pride, and by our law, my bond. But you've also given me something unexpected. And what's that? A reason to believe not all strength is born in our blood, she said, her tone almost soft. For a long moment, they stood without speaking. Below them, the city lights began to glow, stars joining in the darkening sky above. Marcus realized that, against all odds, he had found a place here, not just because of the law, but because of her. When the drums of the city signaled the end of the day, Kareth turned to him fully. From now on, no challenge comes to me without coming to you. We fight together. We stand together. He nodded, feeling the truth of it settle deep in his chest. Then we win together. Her smile widened just enough to show the sharp edge of her teeth. Good, because our enemies will come again, and when they do, I want them to remember the human who held the mace and never let go. The night wind swept over the balcony, carrying the distant hum of the city. Marcus stood beside her, ready for whatever came next, not as an outsider, but as Kureth's equal. And in the quiet between them, a bond forged in battle began to feel like something far stronger.